People will tell you that you don't need to learn parliamentary procedure. They'll tell you, you're not going to be in charge of anything. Why should you even bother to go through all that trouble? What's the point? Have you looked at the book? Have you looked at the book? Look at this. 700 pages. They'll tell you, why bother with this? I mean, we can get along. We're fine. We like each other. We know each other. We're bound to be able to work together. What's the problem? Why should go through all of that? Well, actually, in reality, if you think about it, parliamentary procedure is like algebra. Everyone tells you you're never going to need it. Geometry, you will never see it in your life, they tell you. What they don't realize is that all those sciences, as well as parliamentary procedure, teach you one approach to doing everything. Teach you an approach to troubleshooting, an approach to analyzing things, an approach to assessing things. And the way they do is it forces you to take certain steps that you normally wouldn't unless you were exposed to it. For instance, if you're in a classroom, the professor's asking you to stand up and say something. Without a doubt, those who are like you, leaders, who have worked through parliamentary procedure, would stand up and show more confidence. You would have more conviction. You would be more clear in your way of thinking because you are used to listening to people discuss, and you are always ready to see, how can I turn that down, turn it around? How can I protect my own motions? How can I protect my interest, promote what I'm trying to get? So you think this way in a meeting. Through parliamentary procedure, you think of it this way. Well, when you're in a classroom with other people and other students, you end up thinking way ahead of the way they do because parliamentary procedure helps you do this. Or even when you're in front of somebody else and you're discussing it, you're just arguing back and forth, face to face. If that person has never worked in a meeting, has never worked in parliamentary procedure, that person is going to have faulty thinking. They're going to have difficulty being able to defend their ideas. But if you work through parliamentary procedure in a meeting, you know very well we're methodical. We start off with one point, we work at it, we take the next step, until we get success. It's a very different way of thinking. So this helps you. Parliamentary procedure, well, yeah, maybe. Maybe you'll never be in charge of 100 people at a meeting. But I really doubt it. I really doubt you will not. Every one of you is going to want to have a house somewhere, or an apartment. And when you do, chances are you're going to belong to a home owners association. And guess what? They have meetings. They have meetings. Or you have kids, and they're going to be in some sort of sport. And every time something is going to happen, tournament or fees or whatever, here comes another meeting. And if you don't show up, others will trample all over your rights. This will happen everywhere. It doesn't make any difference. So the idea of parliamentary procedure is a way of thinking. It's a mental approach to solving problems. Being a student in student government is like taking a class. Coming to the meetings is a lab. That's where you learn. So when you come to a meeting, you should learn something from each meeting. Let me go over a whole bunch of stuff we're going to do. You all have a handout, right? Anybody not have a handout? Very good, very good. I asked the college to send me copies of your agendas. And all I'm doing is offering you options, suggestions, recommendations, because we do need to follow Robert's Rules of Order, and we also need to follow the Brown Act. And you all know about the Brown Act. Certain people got together and decided, you're going to use my money, but I'm going to be there to see what you do with it. That's the Brown Act. And that's why it has to be open. You can't have a motion without warning the public. Wake up, we're going to talk about this. It's going to deal with this amount of money, so you have to tell them. If you don't, then you don't have the right to use their money. That's the way it works. And it's a state law. It doesn't have guidelines. It doesn't have recommendations or suggestions. It says do it or suffer. So we've got to figure out what is the Brown Act. We follow it. But let's look at Robert's Rules on your agendas. I know you probably don't have a copy of these with you, but take my word. This is regular meeting, February 17. Roll call, and then you approve the minutes. How can you approve the minutes when you haven't approved the agenda? The agenda says we're going to approve the minutes, but here we are approving the minutes, but we haven't approved the agenda that says we're going to approve the minutes. So those are out of sequence. We need to change that. Another thing, and this you're going to need all the time anywhere, you don't have a right to use an acronym. For instance, WPMD, you have no right to use it unless the first time it comes up in a document, you spell it out. And then you put it in parentheses at the end. Every single document. If you have an acronym, you need to give it, spell it out. And then at the end, put the parentheses, and now you can use it. So imagine I'm a member of the public. I looked at your agenda, and it says, Funding, Broadcasting Conference, WPMD. What is that? A white person doctor? What is that? I don't know. Is it WPMD, white person doctor? What do I care? My doctor is Mexican. I mean, what do I care? So see, but the public needs to know. You can't just put something in there and hope they know. Let me go further. Oh, here's one that I didn't understand. Don't interrupt. I'm just getting started. Okay. Here's something that I want to tell you about. You have old business and new business. What's the difference? In the first place, there is no such thing as old business unless you already killed it and you're reviving it and bringing it back. As long as it's still alive, it's unfinished business. But there is no such thing as old business and unfinished business. It's either unfinished or it's new. So I don't know what old is. Oh, here's another one. Public forum, 3 minutes per speaker. How long are you going to let them talk about the whole topic? The Brown Act requires you say how much per person, and then how much for the topic. You have to include that as well. You did not include. Who did that? Oh, never mind. Okay. And let me go. Oh, at the adjournment, you have to say when you adjourn. So those of you who take minutes for these different groups, the different levels, please add that. Okay, let me go on to something else. Okay, here. Now it's regular meeting minutes, February the 10th. It says approval of the minutes. It doesn't say which. How many did you have that were not approved? What if you had 3 or 4 sets? This doesn't tell me, doesn't take what? Which ones? And you'll never know because, see, later on, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you're going to need to make sure that something has been adopted. And the only way you know that is you go back to the minutes. But you won't know which minutes are adopted because it doesn't say that. So it's got to include it. Just a few things. Oh, abstains. This is one of my favorite hate ones. Abstains. If you are a senator, chances are you represent a segment of the college. Do you not? In most places, it's maybe one of the schools or whatever, but you represent okay, now let's say I am the senator for School of Fine Arts or whatever group, and it's time to vote, and I abstained. I didn't abstain. My entire constituency was shut down. You don't have a right to abstain unless by voting you're going to gain something that nobody else gets. There's a conflict of interest. There were 5 people here abstaining on, I don't know. See, that's another thing. You have numbers, and I don't know what they mean. SB 05, 83, 87, 89. I don't know what that is. But 5 people abstained, which meant they were saying, I am going to gain money if I vote, so I better not vote. See, you cannot abstain just because she speaks in favor of it, and then you like her, but you're against the motion. You can't say, I'm going to abstain because I don't want her feelings hurt. I don't want her to dislike me. You cannot abstain to save her feelings. You have to vote because your group is expecting you to. So abstain is only a matter of, is there a way for you to earn money or gain money that nobody else is going to get? So think about it. How many times does that come up? Unless somebody's getting awarded money, it's not going to come up. It's not. Okay. Senator Villalobos moves to approve legislation. I don't know what legislation was. I looked in here, and nowhere does it mention what it is. Keep in mind, the minutes are being read by people who are from the public, and they need to know what it is you're doing. So we need to put that in there. Oh, here's a whole bunch of them. Move 3 minutes per speaker, move to extend discussion, and move to show stance of support. And apparently they were all passed because it says motion passed. No vote was listed. No vote was listed. That's one of the newest things in the Brown Act. It says we have to account for everyone's vote. If we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 individuals, you don't have to take roll to put in the minutes how they voted. Let's say it's these 6 individuals. Let's say I'm the chair, and I say, all those in favor indicate by raising your hand. So most of them raise their hand. I can tell who did. And I say, all those opposed indicate by raising their hand. And it's only one person. I didn't take roll, but I'll turn to the secretary and say, motion was adopted with, what is your name? Chair? Care? Karen. Okay. I will say, motion was adopted, Karen voting in opposition. There is no doubt in anyone's mind how the rest of them voted. Because I said the motion was adopted. Guess why? Guess why? With only one opposition. So in the minutes, it's got to reflect how everyone voted. And it doesn't here. It doesn't. And that's a violation of the Brown Act. I'm spending time because these are the things that we can quickly correct. These are cosmetic things before we get to my drills. So I want to make sure that we all agree. Any questions on that? Yes, please. That's even better. That's even better. There is no reason why you should take a vote unless something is really heated, or you have to take a 2/3 vote, or it deals with a lot of money. But otherwise, just about all the motions should be settled with 5 magic words. If there is no objection, and it's done. If there's no objection, minutes are adopted. If there's no objection, agenda is adopted. If there's no objection, we take a 10-minute recess. If there's no objection, meeting is adjourned. You don't need to you don't need to entertain a motion. I know you're close to Hollywood, but we don't need that kind of entertainment. We just go ahead and do the motion. Was there another comment? Yes, please, Joy.
There is, at the beginning of the meeting, a roll call vote.
Good.
Then,
but it's not a vote, it's just a roll call, right?
Roll call.
Okay, yes.
Then, right before an hour is done, several senators take a point of personal privilege and leave. Does that have to be documented?
Okay, good point. Quick, the point is, oh, by the way, if I don't repeat the question, don't let me get away with that. That's a bad practice on speakers. Anytime you go to a place and someone is speaking and someone asks them a question and they don't repeat it, bad speaker, bad. So don't let me do that. You're right. The question was, what happens if you take roll, meeting continues, and somebody leaves? We don't care. We don't know if that person is coming back. We don't know what the person is doing. So you just leave it like that. You could make a note and say, such a person left at a particular time, but that's all, only because we're trying to find out who's there, but it's not really that critical. But going back to something else you said, and this is something that I don't understand why people do this. There is no such thing as personal privilege unless it is truly personal about your reputation. Say, for instance, the minutes indicate you haven't paid. You can say personal privilege, I have paid, because it's insulting you. It's costing you some stress. But you can't say, personal privilege, I want the lights turned down. That's not a personal privilege, that's an assembly privilege. So they are very rare personal privileges, very rare. It has to be saying something that insults you or hurts your reputation. That's why it's called personal. Otherwise, it doesn't count. Any comments, please? Yes, please, please. Her question is, she's got a good system to keep track of who's there, and she knows them. Perfect. What I'm saying is, you don't interfere with the meeting just to keep track of who left, who's there, take roll again. You have a system that works, because you know them, you've got a way to put them in. No, there's about 2 or 3 comments there. Let me see if I catch them all. Her question was, if I already know who's there when I take roll, how do I count for them? Okay. The chair is the one that has to account. Are you serving as a chair? Okay. So you have to tell the secretary what to write. The secretary has no right to write down any opinions. Let's say that I'm going to take, I haven't forgotten, we're going to come right back. If I take a vote on these folks right here, and I say all those in favor and 4 go up, all those opposed, and if I don't tell the secretary has no right to say, well, I know it was adopted, I saw 4 and 2. It's not for that person to do that, because the only one that can be challenged is the president, the chair, presiding officer. So the chair has to then say, if it's 2/3, you have to say it was adopted, and at least say who was in opposition. Because if you say who's in opposition, that takes care of the largest number of them. Yes, or if you have a way to check them off, but the best thing would be just list them. Since you already list them in the roll call, and hopefully not many have the same last name. So you can just go ahead and list your last name. But the Brown Act does require that you point out how every person voted, for, against, and abstain, in case they're getting money for it. Any comments on that, please? I'm not sure I covered everything, but do interrupt me, please. So I'm very concerned about this page 4 that mentions a lot of voting and no relation to the Brown Act, and I'm concerned about that. Let me go to the next one. Here's an agenda for ASCC Court. I don't understand this. Let me read this. I don't know who the person is, so please don't be offended. Justices interpret government organization for eligibility to be involved in student government in respect to my current situation. Imagine someone reads that 3 or 6 months later. They wouldn't know what it is. So I don't know what that was. And I'm just trying to get you to see it from the public's perspective. You got to see it from their perspective. Let's leave that. Let me go to your bylaws and your constitution. I need that. It's just amazing, some of the things I saw. Okay, don't go away. I'll find it. I'll be right here. Okay. Here. This is in the Constitution, and it says the following. I've got some general things, but some of these things just woke me up. It says, all registered students of Cerritos College who hold associate student body membership shall be entitled to the rights and privileges as set forth in the bylaws of this Constitution. What? In the bylaws of this Constitution? That's like saying, in the breakfast of this lunch. It doesn't make any sense. You either have bylaws or you have Constitution, but you don't have one or the other. So I don't understand what that means. But let me tell you the major thing about the bylaws. The bylaws that you have right now seems to be a series of random facts. They need to be shuffled together so that you have category, for instance, everything related to the president, everything related to the vice president, everything related to some grouping. Right now you've got facts for each grouping scattered all over the place. It appears that they were added little by little and just they're sequential. And it makes it very difficult. I had difficulty trying to figure out what does it take to amend your bylaws. It took me a long time to find it. And it should be a category there that says amending of bylaws. There was one for Constitution, but there isn't one for bylaws. And you've got several documents you call bylaws, which are fine. They're fine. But you've got to have some place where you specify that. Finding the composition of each one of your groups was not always very direct because there isn't a category for that. Finding the quorum for each group was also not clear because I had to look in different places. So what I'm recommending is when you have an opportunity to look through your bylaws or the Constitution, think of it the way someone would look at it if they're trying to look for something. They're searching. They're looking for a fact. How will they be able to find it? Do they have to go line by line? Not good. Or can they just go to a category? Any comments on that? Am I insulting you because they're your bylaws, they're your Constitution? Any comments on your Constitution? Anything you know? Anything you want to say about it? About the bylaws? Okay. Yes, please, sir. What does it take to amend the bylaws? Well, you have several categories, several groups of bylaws, and each one seems to have some reference to some different manner. The Constitution says it, and it's very, very, very demanding. But the others, it's hard to tell, because your definition of a bill implies that when you have a bill, you're going to modify the Constitution or the bylaws. So you say how to modify the bill or adopt the bill without really saying that what we're doing is amending the bylaws. See, it's very distinct, and it's hard to tell. You have the category of bills, resolutions, and recommendations. I had a little difficulty trying to see the difference because it's written, lots of facts, but it was a little difficult to see the face to face what they do and what it takes to adopt them. They didn't, out of the three, only one of them said what it took to adopt. See, and my concern is that we need to look at it clearly as if somebody who had never seen the process looks at it the first time. Yes, sir, please. Yes, yes, yes. Other have other ASOs written constitutions and bylaws, definitely. I work with a lot of colleges all over the state. I didn't introduce myself, right? So you don't know who I am. Just somebody taking on over the stage. Let me tell you about myself. My name is Lorenzo. Okay, let's go on. So then, no, I'm the president of the California State Association of Parliamentarians. I am a professional parliamentarian recognized by the National Association of Parliamentarians, and that means every few years I have to be recertified in order to work at this level. And there are only about 12 or so all over the state at my level. So we work with a lot of boards and conventions, and I'm lucky in that I get a lot of the colleges. I've worked with more than 20 colleges in the past 3 years. So I see a lot of what you're talking about. All these things that I'm mentioning, I'm comparing you to other colleges. Not in a bad way, but rather to get better ideas. So for instance, the Constitution should be the document that is least flexible. Generally, it requires a vote of the constituency, the entire body. And you have that. You say, I think it's 15% of the body has to vote, and you got to have 2/3 of them voting in favor, plus you got to have 2/3 of the senators voting in favor of it also. So it should be like that. It should be strict. But it should be strict if you've got the right things in the Constitution. What happens is most of you came right out of English class when you went to look at the Constitution, and you started writing an essay. So you put things in there in the Constitution just because the topic is there. So everything that relates to the topic is crammed into the Constitution, and it shouldn't be that. The way you decide what goes into the Constitution is only those parts of any topic that should be inflexible for changing. If you don't want those changed, put it in there. For instance, the composition of your board. You don't want anyone to fool with that, fine. The demands or the obligations or requirements or duties or powers, maybe you don't want any of those changed. But there could be other things. For instance, when you meet, really, it shouldn't be in the bylaws. It shouldn't be strict. You want to be able to decide, this month we will not meet on Wednesday because of whatever reason. This month we're going to meet on Thursday. And instead of meeting at 2 o'clock, we'll meet at 1:30. Right now, you don't have the power to do that because it's in the bylaws and it's very difficult to change. So first, the Constitution should be difficult. The bylaws usually require only two meetings. One meeting where someone gives a notice that they're going to change it. And then in the second meeting, they vote on it. Notice how it's a lot more flexible. You don't need all the body to vote for it. You can just have the board itself. So you have some flexibility. You need flexibility. There's another level of documents called the standing rules. These, pay attention. These require a majority vote to amend. And you can do it without a notice, and you can do it right then and there on the very day. So on the Constitution, it's going to take you until the next general election before you change anything. That's very difficult. And the bylaws, it'll take you 2 weeks, 2 months, two meetings. And in standing rules, doesn't make any difference. On the day that you meet, you can change it without a notice with a majority rule. See the level of complexity and the difficulty in changing. So what I'm saying is that that's the definition of the three documents. It is very difficult for you to change your Constitution because you've got to go back to the general election. You've got to go back to those folks and ask them. It's going to be very difficult. Your bylaws really need to be recategorized into groups so that people can find things. That is not so hard. And you don't have standing rules, even though you mentioned them, but I never saw a copy of the standing rules. However, you've got certain documents, no doubt, that are not called standing rules, but are treated as such. Because a standing rule is really any rule that deals with the mechanics of doing something. For instance, how you run your election. As long as it's nothing you need in the bylaws, it should go in the standing rules. All this idea that you can only campaign these days, your poster can only be this size, you have to campaign by a certain date, the regular things that you have for elections, those probably shouldn't be in the bylaws unless you really think this is strict. We don't want anyone fooling with it. Then put it in the bylaws. So you see, the topic has nothing to do with the documents. What matters is how much flexibility do you want for each? And that's how you decide. So what you learned in English about a good essay has nothing to do with this. Any comments on that? That's the biggest thing, the biggest scolding I've got for you. It took me a long time to figure out how am I going to say this. But then again, I say this to every college because every college has the same problem. Every college has that difficulty. These 3 documents are constantly evolving. These 3 documents are live. They're alive. So you get to change them as you need. Ideally, if you had a committee and a governance committee, you would assign them a task. Go through every line. If that line no longer applies, let's think about removing it. If we need to update one, let's talk about it, update it. If you can think of a new one that's not in there, let's talk about it and add it. So you can remove some, update some, and add some new ones. When you do that, then you can update your bylaws. But it'll still take some work. It's going to take a lot of people looking through every line. You need to have a meeting where you go over it, vote on it, and get it done. But otherwise, your bylaws are going to be, I don't know. Does anybody know how old your bylaws are? Do any of you know? Okay, I would think that they haven't been updated, and they really should be updated. They need to. The bylaws have to match your needs. Your needs. You have no obligation to follow them just because they're rules. That's not the point. The rules are there because they match your needs. Any comments on that? Yes, please, sir.
Can they just start from scratch and adopt a new concept?
Yes, good point. Can you start from scratch? It's called a revision, not an amendment. It's called a revision. So you have the old document, and you work on a new one. Don't even try to account for every change. You just redo the whole thing all over, and then you vote on revising. Yes, write it down. Vote on revising the entire set of Constitution or revising the bylaws. You just redo one from the other. Thank you very much. In this case, I think it'll be easier. Yes, please, ma'am.
Does that need to be done during the general election?
Well, here's the unfortunate part. She's asking when. Well, since it's the Constitution, you still have to abide by their rules when you're doing the revision. So that means we have to do it during the general election. We have to get 15% of people to vote. We have to get 2/3 of them to vote. We have to get the Senate to approve it by 2/3. As I remember, those are the requirements for your Constitution. And all the colleges have something different. Robert has some recommendation, but yours are good. The only problem is you've got stuff in there that shouldn't go there. That means you can't change it. You got to go back to the general election because somebody put it in there because their English teacher told them it belongs with this topic, so put it in there. It flows nicely. Well, that's not the point. That's not the point. It's what do we need? What do we need? So you have to keep changing it. Any comments on that, please? Thank you. I've forgotten about that point. I have a handout for you. There is no way we're going to cover everything. That was not the issue. I am more interested in looking at questions you might have or some concerns. But everything that I have in here, you can go back and look at later, and you will be able to use it. But let's go through some of the things that I started out with. Okay, start with page 3. Page 3. I'm sure this is going to be a repeat and review for most of you, but give me a chance to talk to those few of you who might not have had exposure. Okay, page 3. There is a hierarchy of governance. You don't just say we have Constitution or we have bylaws. There's a whole bunch more. And because there's a hierarchy, there's a pecking order of different documents. When you leave here and you transfer, you go to a university, they're going to have a different set of hierarchy. If you go to the PTA, it's the same thing. If you go to your church group, you go to a community athletic group, they're all going to have a different set. And they start the same way. There are always federal statutes. Can anybody give me an example of a federal statute that you have to comply with right now? Federal statute. Anybody know any? Yes, you do. You need to give me one. ADA. ADA is a federal statute. There is nothing you can do to violate that. You can't write it into your Constitution that you're going to have your meeting on the 3rd floor just because you want the view. It's got to have ADA compliance. Okay, the next one, state laws. These are a lot more varied. Depending on the different clients that I have, there's a lot more. But with you folks, you're not incorporated. A couple of colleges are, but yours is not, as I remember. Yours is not. Then there's the California Public Records Act. Can you tell me what the California Public Records Act is? Do you know? Okay. Can somebody tell me what it is? Okay, let me tell you. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but it's fun. Anyway, the point is, California Public Records Act is the power that the public has to tell you, give me all your emails. And there's nothing you can do as long as you are using their money to do business, such as student government. They can demand that they see documents that you have. Any document, any document. Right now, you don't even have to post minutes, which you have written somewhere in your bylaws. You don't have to post minutes. That's only internal. So don't worry about that. But if someone from the public says, I want to see the minutes for December the 10th, you have to supply them. And that's the California Public Records Act. The other one is, yes, please.
What if though they cannot comply?
The question, what if you cannot comply? Then you are just in as much trouble as you are with the Brown Act. Because they'll go to the district attorney and say, I asked, they ignore me, and you're in trouble. Yes, please. I'm not sure they all heard you. Okay. Okay. But yeah, her point is we post everything. There are other documents that I want to make sure that you realize you have and may not have posted. Were you going to add, please?
Yeah, I just have a question just to see if I got this clear. So let's just say, for example, like the president can say, no, I want to see your personal email, I want to see all your...
Only related to your work. Only related to your work. Yeah, no, that's in the Democratic and Republican Party where they want your personal emails. No. Here it's just anything related to your work. If you wrote a document in relation to support of something, they want to see what you wrote. How can you what?
Who oversees that? How do you have that oversight to what?
The public has the oversight. He says who can control that and decides what they can see. You have no right to say no. There are a few sections in the law, but they all refer to trade secrets, negotiation, litigation. In our case, in a community college, it probably doesn't relate to that. You don't have employees, do you? You directly you. College does, but not you. You do? You get paid. Does everybody know that? He gets paid. Did you pay for the pizza? No. Well, so what did you pay for? No. Oh, that's right, because okay. That's different because the college pays you. The Senate doesn't pay you. So the Senate doesn't have employees. Yes, please. Oh, you do? Okay. But ASCC, really? Okay. Yes, but I wanted to make sure. Is it because, are you getting paid because you're part of ASCC, or does ASCC funds pay you? Okay. So we have two exceptions. Yes, please, sir. What are you going to add?
Well, just technically, it would be the funds that the district allows ASCC to oversee. They could be district funds, but...
Yeah, but the way you're right, it could be any funds, but the way that they're referring to in reference to employee is that the group hires and fires rather than stipends, so that could be different. Yes, please, sir.
Question, if somebody represents the students and they get paid by the district, do you ask for their emails or not?
The question is, if someone gets paid by the district and we ask for the email, yes, as long as they're receiving public funds for the work they're doing, the paperwork they handle while they're doing that work is public information. And that's why it's called, yes, please. Does it explain? That's a problem. The question was, does it include all the other electronic formats? That's a difficulty that they haven't reached that point. But it's supposed to say, the way it was written, it refers to paper. But they've gotten to, if it's a database or a spreadsheet and it's electronic, but they haven't said social media. They have just said anything on a floppy or a hard drive, but not social media, because that's difficult. Any other comments, please? Okay. So then the California Education Code. If you got any questions, speak with Amber. She knows that better than anybody in this room. Find out what is it that we can do, can't do. She can tell you what the district allows you, what the college allows you. You should be autonomous. You should decide on how you spend your money as a Senate or as an ICC. You should be the ones to decide. As long as you're complying with the college rules, as long as you're complying with the district and with the California Education Code, no one should tell you anything, because it should be your budget. So figure out whether that's happening or not. But in other colleges, it's always like that. But when in doubt, speak with Amber. She's the only one that knows in this room. Okay, the next one is the Brown Act. I'll talk more about that one. And that one is the one that says, if you're using the public funds, the public has a right to witness what you're doing with it. That's why it's called open meeting. You cannot leave them out. City and local statutes. There are lots of rules, and I'm sure that the rules here, the laws here in Norwalk are very different from the ones in I don't know, some of the city, I don't know this area. What's another town nearby? Cerritos. Cerritos, that's a city? I thought it was a college. Okay, so some other town, they're going to have different rules. They're going to have different laws. So depending on where you are, you're involved with them. Notice, we're going down a peck order. Statutes in the feds, state, local. Now we get to yours, the Constitution. And those are the ones that are hard to change, right? And then there's bylaws, and there's rules of order. We finally get to rules of order. That's this book, Robert's Rules of Order. The reason we use this is because this guy has gone to all the trouble of thinking up every possible situation that you can think of to get into trouble. And he'll tell you how to get out of it. You look at any other book anywhere in the entire country, and they don't get that far. This is the only one that does it. But because people have trouble reading, they fall asleep reading it. The same group, the same authors, the same publishing company, the same text, same word, everything created this other book, same name, called In Brief. It's only a couple of 100 pages long, and I assure you, if you can spend an hour reading it, you'll read most of it. And it'll help you run a meeting. This is intended to run a meeting, whereas this one is intended to save your hide, because you're going to get into trouble with money that doesn't belong to you. But this one will help you. There are no other books that will do that, that go that far. This one is inexpensive. So I was speaking with Amber, and I was hoping that you all had enough money to get each one of the senators one of these. And that's about $12. So if you have lots of money to spend and you can do away with one more pizza dinner, buy one for each. This is not a dummies book. It is not a dummies book. It has the exact same information. Any comments on that? So that's parliamentary authority. And the last one is standing rules. Yeah, that's the same version, except this one is hardback and that one is the paperback. Oh, you do? You do, okay. Oh, then that means, great. Then that means that the college already spent a lot more money on you than I thought that they needed to, because I thought you could do this. It's a little smaller. Okay. Then we're still looking at the pecking order. Then comes the very last item on the pecking order, and that's a scary one. These are customs. These are not written, but they're respected by everyone. Everyone obeys them. You could have a custom that says, when people come in, they must do the following, then sit right here. Well, there's nothing anywhere in the rules that says you have to do that, but everyone respects them. And as soon as someone does it differently, everyone senses it and gets stressed out. He's sitting in the wrong place, and so you have to move. But there's no rule that says you have to. You have lots of customs like this. But if you have a custom that is really important to you, write it up, put it in your bylaws, if it's that important. If not, then expect that every administration is going to just ignore it. Any comments on this pecking order? You will see this all the time, any organization you go to. Let me go to the do's and don'ts. This is in reference to minutes, bottom of the page. Okay, the first thing you need to include is the meeting information. I saw no problem with yours. Date, time, location, fine. Attendance, you had attendance. You mentioned quorum, very good. And you named each mover of a motion. Very good. The other thing was exact wording and the action taken. The motion was there because it's part of the agenda, and it was well written. Sometimes it was amended, and it was not rewritten, so I wasn't sure what was amended, but that was fine. The next one is how every member voted. That's the one that I found that you were not doing. And you need to be careful, because that's not Robert. That's from the Brown Act. It's a Brown Act that requires us to comply. The Brown Act violation is only a misdemeanor, which you'll think, not a big deal. Well, it might not be, but, oh, I lost the newspaper. You know how when you go to the grocery store, you see these free throwaway newspapers, the little local newspapers. They're in every, you'll have them here at 7-Eleven, no doubt. Well, if you violate the Brown Act and someone goes to the district attorney, the guys that publish those magazines will come around, take a picture of you, misspell your name, and explain to the public how you are misusing public funds, because they love that. Your name is going to be mud. You'll wind up in the local newspaper. I see this so often. So the best thing is, if you have any doubt, just do the best to avoid any possibility, because you'll end up in a newspaper. Any comments so far? So how everyone voted is critical, and discourage abstain. If someone abstains, ask them, are you sleeping with this guy? What? Why? Why aren't you voting? I mean, there's got to be a good reason that they get to gain something that nobody else does. The next thing, all points of order, appeals, rules suspended, notices, reports, these should be in there. Reports from closed session, not reports from commissioners, reports from closed session. I just want you to see what you should have. You only have one thing that I want to make sure to change. And now the thing about do not include, and this is common. I saw this in yours. Well, you'll take my word for it. I'll tell you about it. Where it says, first of all, you should not have the details in the report, because in your minutes, you should attach the reports from everyone. They should be attached. They should all be a package. They should all be stored away as one. You shouldn't have a vocal report. You should have a written report so that people can go back and agree, yes, he did say that. He had it in writing. Because if not, I assure you, if you say something today as a report, 2 weeks later, he's going to say you said something differently, and you've got no way to defend yourself because it wasn't in writing. And he's going to be right. He's going to convince all his buddies, and you're going to be wrong, and your picture's going to be on the paper. So the thing is, you should have, even if it's just one paragraph, even if it's just small, but you have to, if you're required to submit a report, and you should be. After all, that's why you're a commissioner. You've got a role. You've got an obligation to do something. So you should include that. Debate content? No. What somebody argued? No. That doesn't go in there. Personal opinions? No. The secretary has no power to include opinion about anything. The last one says phrases of praise or criticism. There was one entry in one of the set of minutes where someone was accused of, and it says so right there, you've been accused of humiliating and putting people down. I think those were the words. I don't know if you remember that from a meeting. But you can't do that. You can't say that. You cannot write that down. You cannot have criticism. You cannot have praise. That's got nothing to do with minutes. The minutes are a laundry list of what you decided, a laundry list of what actions you took, not how somebody could be silly. This is not. That's not what goes there. Any comments on this, please? Okay. Oh, by the way, I don't give breaks, because then you'll go out and start texting, emailing, and Facebook, and I'll never see you again. So if you really need to go ahead and hurt my feelings and leave, but I'll try to finish very quickly. Any comments on this? Page 4. If you get nothing from visiting with me today, I hope that page 4 is the one you'll remember. Page 4 is the one that allows you to have effective meeting management. Page 4 is the one that solves a lot of the problems. If your meeting lasts 90 minutes, I can make it last 25 if you follow these rules. Because this is what happens all the time. Okay, so let me go through some of these very quickly. Only one person speaks at a time. Of course, I'm sure you do that. You don't have several people talking at one time, right? So I'm not going to, you're not being sarcastic, right? Okay, very good. And no one can speak unless they're recognized. You were doing very well. People shooting their arm up when they had a comment. I hope that happens also in your board, especially when you have 30-some members. I've got some of my clients that have 30, and it's very difficult. We can't even find a place to sit them in the first place. And then when we do have them, they're crowded and they're just in a bad mood. But there's 30 people, that's a lot. Do you have a room that fits 30 plus? You're lucky. You don't meet outside in the quad, do you? No, you have a room. Well, that's good. It's very good. Number 3, all comments are made through the chair. That seems like so simplistic, you're not even going to remember it. But let's say that young lady makes a comment, and it's your emotion, one of the emotions. The fellow with the cap over here doesn't agree with her. He thinks she's crazy, and he gets to speak next. He turns to her and starts telling her off why she has no merit, and she really shouldn't have said that in the first place. Now the two of them are angry because they're looking at each other, and they're not being nice. Now she gets to speak, and she's already hot on her collar, and now she goes after him. Gets worse. And pretty soon his buddies jump in, her buddies jump in, and now you lost control. Why? Because it didn't go to the chair. Now let's do it the other way, the way it should be doing. She says something that gets everyone upset, whatever. And he doesn't agree, and he says something to contradict her, but he tells me, he's not angry at me. He's going to mellow down. He's going to calm down. He's going to use better vocabulary. His tone of voice is going to be moderated. And he'll tell me, and everyone will understand, he doesn't agree with her. But it's very mellow. Now she's not offended because it was mellow. It was calmed down. When she gets to respond, she talks to me. Well, she's not angry with me. She doesn't even know me. So she calms down. She's got no reason to be angry at me. So you handle this heated debate by having everything go through you calmly, and you keep it like that. If you see someone turn to respond to someone, not talk to you, you as a presiding officer must put a stop to it. You must have the backbone to say, please direct your comment to the chair. Don't let them speak. Direct your comment to the chair, direct your comment to the chair. Now they calm down because they've got nothing against you. It's somebody else. And it calms everything down. Okay, saves a lot of time because people get to be productive. Here comes number 4. Number 4 is the one that no one can read, and I wrote it in short, small English words, but they can't read it. Comments are confined to the current issue. People don't know what that means. So let me cover that. Let's say that his motion is to buy 3 computers. And we're discussing it, we're debating it. Pretty soon we're going to vote, but before we vote, he makes a motion to amend 3 computers. He wants to strike 3 and insert 5. And we discuss 3 versus 5. We go to the next person, and he starts talking about buying computers. That is not the issue. The issue is 3 or 5. The chair has to have a strong enough backbone to listen and notice when someone is going off the topic, that's off the topic, because it's 3 or 5, not buy computers. If he starts talking about computers, the chair has to say, no, do you have anything to say about the amendment? That's the pending question, 3 or 5. If he says no, thank you. Anybody else have anything to say about 3 versus 5? If no one has anything to say, we vote. Notice, we stop discussion, we start debate. What usually happens is it turns into a free-for-all. Brainstorming. Pretty soon we talk about leasing computers, then borrowing, then stealing them because the warehouse is available. And then you go to all these different, and that's got nothing to do with the topic. Yes, sir.
What does that have to do with the model computers?
Were we talking about the amending? Okay, did we say anything about the model during the amendment? No. That's it. It doesn't matter. The model comes back to when we talk about computers. So we'll figure out the number first because that's the amendment. As soon as we're done talking about that, we come right back to this motion. And now you can bring in, should we get it from Fry? Should we get it from Sears? Should we buy this model? You can do anything. But then someone starts amending this one. Now you're stuck. You cannot talk about the motion anymore. Now you got to talk about whatever they bring up. And that's the part that people waste a lot of time. Because we're talking about one thing, suddenly everyone forgets it. The chair can't keep track. The secretary's not helping. And we're back to talking about this. And what about that guy? Then suddenly we say, okay, let's take a vote. And everyone thinks we're talking about his vote, the amendment. But the vote is on, the motion. But the vote is on the amendment. And they get very confused because they don't know, why are you talking about the amendment? We've been talking about the motion. See my point? You save a lot of time if you can have a backbone, or if not, you as a member out there as a board, as a senator, when you notice this going on, just say very calmly with a smile, point of order, he's off the topic and off his rocker, or whatever. And everyone will know, yeah, we need to go back to the real topic. Any comments on that, please? Discussion should go between pro and con. You don't have to read minds to know whether the person is going to speak for or against. Let's say, for instance, he makes a motion, and his motion is, I don't know, whatever. And as I'm looking around, I see that she is making faces at the motion. I can tell she doesn't like that motion. I don't know why, but she doesn't like it. And so guess who gets to speak next? Guess who gets to speak next? I hope you say it's her, because we have to alternate between for and against. So because she made that funny face, I need to call on her. And notice what happens. As soon as I do that, we're getting rid of about half of the arguments, because she was passionate about it. If we can get those major ones out of the way, the other ones will just fall very easily. So I call on her. And so as she's speaking, I look around. Again, I am measuring the distance between the eyebrows, see what faces people are making. And then I notice that this lady over here doesn't agree. She's next. And you keep going back and forth, back and forth. In a group of 30, chances are you might be stuck with the old system of taking down names depending on who raises their hand. The problem with that is you can get 5 that are in favor. What about the against? When do they ever get a chance to speak? In that situation, when you get stuck into that, the chair has to be firm enough to realize, here's another person speaking in favor. And you tell the person, just a minute, you're going to speak in favor. We've heard 3 people already speak in favor. Quiet him and say, does anybody want to speak against? Once you hear 3 people speaking on one side, stop it. Get the other side. If there is no other side, vote. Why waste time? The reason you speak in debate is to sway people's ideas on how they're going to vote. If they all agree, why are you still nagging them? Just go to the vote. Any comments on that? Yes, please.
You mentioned about asserting the point of order,
Uh-huh.
but you also mentioned you need to be recognized by the chair.
Yes, right. No. Just a second. Don't go any further. Keep your thought. Point of order does not require you to be recognized. You can interrupt anyone, anytime with a point of order. Point of order is merely saying, we have a violation and I want to put a stop to that. We have a violation. I want to stop to that. Point of order doesn't say, I don't agree with that person. That's not what it means. Okay, so I just wanted to correct that. Please continue. Oh, okay, very good. Yes, please, sir. Yes.
Okay. You know how you said that when there's no more arguments?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Do you have to make a motion before the vote?
Question is, if you know that there's no more arguments, do you have to make a motion to go to the vote? Not to go for the vote. We should have had a motion that we were discussing, right? That's a given. We had a motion. Let's try it this way. Okay, so I say, okay, who's next to speak? And he raises his hand, and he starts going against the motion, and we already had 3 in a row. So immediately I say, just a second, please, just a second. Does anybody else wish to speak for? No one responds. I say it again. Does anybody wish to speak for the motion? We've had 3 against, no one for. Very good. Is there no objection? This motion will be defeated, period. Because nobody went to speak for it. 3 people said they hated it. So you go to the 5 magic words. If there is no objection, it's defeated. You don't have to take a vote. And of course, secretary has no doubt how to write it down. Secretary merely says, without objection. The motion was defeated. That's it, in the minutes. Without objection, the motion was defeated. Good point. Any other comments, please? Yes, please, sir. Question is, can the public can do no parliamentary comments, reaction, nothing, no parliamentary. You have to listen to them because they can speak with anything in the subject matter jurisdiction of your society. You have to listen to them. Subject matter jurisdiction. But they have no right to do anything parliamentary. Yes, please. I think the lady had her arm first.
No, that's the same thing.
Oh, okay, very good. Sir. Question is, good point. I skipped that in the agenda. Do you have to recognize members from the public? This is the way the Brown Act says. The Brown Act says the public must have direct access to the board members. Direct. They must be able to address them directly. That means whenever they want to speak, they should be able to speak. However, Brown Act goes on and says they can speak before the subject is covered or during. I'm still not getting to your point, okay? I'm not avoiding it. Before or during. The before is a public forum. That's the before. Subject matter jurisdiction, okay? They cannot come to you and argue about high school rules. You're dealing with community college. Subject matter jurisdiction. Now, during. Let me give you an example. We have a motion, we're about to talk about it, and I already know that people have come to the microphone to speak. So I'll ask them, we will allow you to speak. First, let's hear a few points from the board. Maybe that will answer your questions. So you'll get a few comments, just enough to think that you're getting into the public's questions, and then you say, okay, now we'll start with the public. The first speaker, do you have something to say to us? And that person will speak. But if you let them speak, they'll just take over. They'll take over. And you don't know that you agree with them because they're in line. So the best thing is find out first what the board is going to say, 2 or 3 people, and tell them, warn them, we're going to do this. They'll speak. And when they're done, a couple of people, just enough to placate. That's what you're doing. You're satisfying their anger. Then you let the public speak. Yes, sir.
You said you had 3 people that were against.
Yes, sir.
What if one of the members from the public is for the argument?
Okay, good point. What happens is that during the discussion, you recognize somebody from the public. Because they cannot vote, we don't care what side they are, we don't count them in deciding, shall we take a vote? Okay, yes, please, sir.
When is it right moment to call a point of order? And also, can you call a point of order during public comment?
Okay. Don't let me forget the second one, because I already forgot what it was. Okay, so let me forget. I'm going to rely on you to come back. Oh, you help me out. Okay. What was the first one?
The first one, when is it right moment to call a point of order?
Oh, I forgot that one too. Okay, when is the right time to call point of order? Anytime you see A violation. It's got to be a violation. If you know your rule says something, you're not sure what it says, but you know that's not what it says. For instance, someone wants to do something and the chair, the presiding officer says, it's going to take a majority vote. And you think, no, I think that's 2/3 vote. You're not sure where it's written. You're pretty sure the person's wrong. You immediately just yell it out, point of order. Here's how it's conducted. I have a script for that, but let me do it right now. Imagine that I'm the chair, and I'm making some wild comments about what we're going to do, and you catch me at something, and you immediately interrupt me, or any other speaker. Point of order. That freezes everything. You can't do anything when you hear a point of order. You have to attend to it. So the chair must stop, turn to the person, and with a gracious smile says, what is your point of order, please? Now the person says, I think it's 2/3 instead of majority. Now the chair has to make a ruling. Okay, you're listening because you get to do something right after that. Chair makes a ruling. The ruling says, your point is well taken, meaning you're right. I made a mistake. Your point is well taken, now I correct it and move on. That's the end of that. Or you tell me something, I don't agree, and I say, your point is not well taken, meaning nah, you're wrong. So I ignore him. So whether it's right or wrong, anybody, including him, anybody can right away, immediately interrupt a second time and say, I know this is wordy. I appeal from the decision of the chair. Sounds pompous. I appeal from the decision of the chair. It's 1876 Robert. I appeal from the decision of the chair. And all that says is, we're going to turn this into a popularity contest. We don't care whether you're right or we're wrong. We're going to see if we can outvote you. It doesn't make any difference. If he says that I was wrong and I was not, and we go to appeal, all of you get to vote against me and say I'm wrong, even though I'm right. And you will rule, because the appeal turns the power away from the chair to the individuals that are voting. So here's the process, okay? I'm talking, he says, point of order. What's your point of order? And he says something, and I say, your point is not well taken. She yells, I appeal from the decision of the chair. And so now we go into the next phase of it. I have a whole script on this. The next phase of it is, as chair, I get to explain my ruling. I got to tell you why I think I'm right. And then anyone who wants to speak gets to speak one time. Only one time. Anyone who wants to speak speaks one time. And so we just go until we get everyone. And then, the only time this happens, the chair gets to talk again, a second time. This is the only situation where the chair speaks more, or speaks at all. But it speaks twice. And I explain my ruling. And then I say, okay, now we're going to take the vote. And the vote is, those in favor of sustaining the decision of the chair. Isn't that terrible? Isn't that terrible? There's got to be some easier way to say that in English. So what it amounts to is, those who agree with me vote yes. And so you vote. It's going to have to take a majority in the noes to veto what I just said. Otherwise, I win. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes, I agree with you. Yes. Yeah. Yes. On what part? Yeah, you're right. If you had gone to the point where you adopted something by a vote they reversed, now your actions are nullified. And we go back and we do it the right way. Because according to popularity vote, it happens to be the correct interpretation. They may be completely wrong. And there's nothing you can do as a chair except be gracious and make sure it gets into the minutes, because the minutes will prove you were right. But your action is nullified. And it's not your fault. It's not your fault. This is common. And we need to have that, because we can never have a presiding officer that insists on making unilateral decisions. No presiding officer can make a unilateral decision. This is very common. Quite often the chair will say, oh, okay, we're going to vote now. No, we're not. We decide, not you. Or they say, oh, okay, we're going to adjourn, or we're going to take a recess. No, we're not. You, the senators, decide, not the chair. The chair can never make any unilateral decisions. It's only you. That's why the 5 magic words are critical. The chair wants to take a break, and you don't. The chair says, if there is no objection, we will take a recess. No one objects, we're on recess. But it's not my decision as the chair to take the recess, it's yours. You gave your consent.